Hello, and today I want to talk to you about muscles and longevity. And this is a really important subject as we get older. How we kind of maintain or work our muscles is really important to our health and actually to how long we can actually live. So the first thing is to understand is as we age, the natural process is that we'll have a decreasing or decline in your muscle mass. This is known as sarcopenia. That's the fancy name for it, but it really means that you're losing muscle mass as we age, and that's kind of considered a normal part of aging. But each of us will lose this muscle mass kind of at different rates depending on our things we do to try to counterbalance that. So that's why I want to talk to you about this now, is because obviously as you have a reduction in your muscle mass, it's going to affect your mobility, your balance, kind of your general function, and really your independence as you grow older. Now there's studies that actually shown that loss of muscle mass can really cause you to have an earlier death. In fact, one study looked at females over the age of 65, and they found that those females with a lower muscle mass were 63 times more likely to die earlier than women with more muscle mass. And the study also found in men that men with lower muscle mass were 11 times more likely to die early than those with a higher muscle mass. Now, having weak muscles really affects a lot of things, but one of the big things it does is it also affects our structural bone health. This puts you at higher risk of fractures, and fractures as we get older, can be really a significant problem for us. Now, if you combine the loss of this muscle mass with also osteoporosis, that's going to greatly increase your risk of fractures. So it's both related to bone health and muscle health. So the important thing is obviously as we do things to maintain our muscle mass, that also will directly impact our bone health and increase our bone density and things like that. So it's really important to understand that as we get older, there's things we really should focus on to increase or maintain our muscle mass. Now, there is some confusion why when I say that in men it's 11 times more likely to die and women 63 more times more likely. Why is it that women have this higher risk? And it's thought to believe that it's related to kind of hormonal changes related to menopause, and that really has a negative effect on your muscle mass and also your bone density. So it's really important that both men and women focus on both maintaining and also trying to improve their muscle mass. So what can you do to improve your muscle mass? So when you think of the strength of a muscle, it's measured how much force it exerts and really how much you can push, pull, or lift for a short period of time. So it's really your ability to move and lift an object. Now that's different than muscle endurance, which is your ability to hold a position for a long time or push or pull or lift an object over and over again. So here we're talking about muscle strength. So it's like maximum strength of the muscle, not how long the muscle can hold something, but the maximum strength. And really the way to do this, to improve this, is really through really strength training exercise, and then really got to make sure you're having sufficient protein intake. So let's talk a little bit about strength training. So really to improve your muscle strength and really to prevent this muscle loss, you got to put in the work. So you just got to do the work. There's not a better way to say it. But the good news is that research have shown that resistance training can result in stronger muscles even at 90 if you're 90 years old. So it's never really too late to really start to train. So furthermore, if you suffer from osteoarthritis, it's been found that this type of exercise doesn't exacerbate if done correctly. Now, obviously, we'll be talking about weights that put your body under physical stress. So it's important that these moves be done correctly. But if they're done correctly, it really doesn't aggravate osteoarthritis. So what do we do when we're talking about increasing your muscle strength? Well, you've got to assess your current strength. And this is really an important step because it's really what you're going to do to determine how much weight you should be working with when you're exercising. And you really do this by finding out what's called your 1 rep max, the one RM test. And this is really just to determine how much you can lift one time. But you also understand that when you're doing this, you're putting your body through pretty high physical forces, so you want to make sure you do it right. So the first thing you want to do is you warm up by lifting just kind of a half of what you think maybe your 1 RM rep would be, your 1 rep max would be. And you want to repeat this lift 3 to 5 times. And really, you want to make sure, again, you're lifting with good form. You're going to rest and you're going to repeat this. And basically, you're going to slowly increase the weight you're doing this with until you finally get to that point that you now basically lift the weight one time, and that's your 1 rep max. You're going to use this now as kind of your foundation to build on what you're going to determine how much you're going to be lifting. So it's important to understand that while lighter weights can initially help you build muscle strength, you're really eventually going to have to move into heavier weights plus fewer reps to really develop strength. So really, to design your program, you're going to want to follow what's called the FIT principle, and that's the frequency, intensity, time, and type. So let's talk about that real quick. So frequency, this is how many training sessions you're going to have per week. Now, the experts, they say that you should train, if you're wanting strength training, you need to train at least twice a week. Intensity is the amount of weight you're going to use per repetition. And really what this is so you're going to use that 1 rep max, and you're going to use that number to determine that. And really the intensity is you're going to want to train to include basically 2 to 4 sets of 1 to 10 reps using 60 to 80% of what your 1 rep max was. So that's your intensity. Timing, your sessions really should be about 30 to 60 minutes. Now, the thing about your sessions is you got to have a good work rest ratio. What that means is you got to give your body time to recover in between sets. So really, to do this, you want a ratio of between 1 to 3 to 1 to 6. So that means that for example, if you perform 8 reps in 20 seconds, then your rest period should be anywhere from 60 to 180 seconds before starting the next set. Now, the type, you should really focus on varying your routine to really achieve those maximum gains, and it's going to really help prevent boredom. But again, the important thing is when you're doing these types of things, you've got to maintain good form. So you want to make sure you're not putting on so much weight that you're now really trying to kind of cheat, if you will, and your form becomes a problem, because you're going to injure yourself, and that's the last thing you want to do is sustain an injury. Because remember, we're trying to build up our muscle strength. We aren't trying to get big and bulky like a bodybuilder. We're just trying to build up our strength to really help improve our longevity. So when you're deciding on these types of things, you really got to choose a strength training program that you're going to enjoy. So whether it's free weights where you basically use dumbbells or other type of free weights, you really need to make sure you enjoy it. Now, the thing with free weights though is they can be a difference in balance, so it can affect your balance, because obviously if you're using dumbbells, you have a dumbbell on the right side, one on the left. And so you got to make sure your form is really good, because it's easy to get your form off here. Now, machine weight training helps kind of makes you kind of stay in a better form, but some people just don't find that as exciting when they're using a machine weight. But again, the important thing is it's got to be something you enjoy. Now, the big thing is with body weight training, this is really going to help you improve stability and muscle strength. And it's really good for beginners, because you're really just using your body weight. You're not using the extra weight. So you can do things with just using your body weight initially, and that's really going to help get you started on the right track. Now, another thing is you really got to plan and track your training. Now, there's a million different apps out there you can download that can help you plan and track your exercises. But the important thing is that you've got to track what you're doing, so you're make sure you're assessing where you're at and that you're progressing, because our goal here is to improve our strength. And so you want to continue to monitor that to make sure you're having improvement. And the big thing is you want to focus on strengthening your kind of the large body mass areas. This will help reduce fall risk. So like your legs, your thighs, your glutes. These are big, large muscle groups to help maintain balance and things like that. But they're also significantly important in metabolism. So the big thing is these large muscle groups and the kind of the core and lower extremities helps prevent your risk of falling too. So that's just kind of the thoughts on the type of workout to increase your strength. But I want to also touch on your diet. So it's important to understand that there's certain building blocks that are important for synthesizing muscle, and one of those building blocks is protein. So you need to make sure you're getting adequate protein in your diet. Now, kind of a helpful guide is to consume about 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight daily. Uh, but the interesting thing is as we get older, our bodies require more protein, and this is really because your body needs more protein to combat this muscle loss. So your body's muscle synthesis becomes less efficient as we get older, and so it needs kind of that extra boost to really help maintain muscle and also promote muscle growth and strength. So again, make sure you're getting adequate protein. Now, also some tips for kind of strength building. Remember, I've said that really at the end here is you're going to have to use heavy weights, low number of reps to really increase that strength. But also that means you need to be concerned about form. And now I know I've said this multiple times, but it's extremely important because again, the last thing you want is an injury. Doing this, we're doing this to promote our health. So we got to do it smart so we don't have an injury. So some tips that may help you improve your strength, but do it safely is, first of all, slow and steady. You see people in the gym all the time that are kind of trying to show off or compete, where they're lifting heavy, large amount of weight, and they clearly have bad form. They're moving the weights rapidly. So remember, slow and steady is really important for you, so you can maintain that good form while you maintain that good intensity. Now, that's why if you're just beginning, smaller, lighter weights are great to start with, so you can get the form down, because the form is really important. The next thing is really listen to your body. So if there's kind of the discomfort of working out, that's a healthy discomfort, and then there's the pain of something's not going right. And you kind of learn to interpret that, your body telling you, hey, you're overtraining or you're stressing this joint too much, and it's time to pay attention and back out of that a little bit. So remember, just listen to your body to really avoid overdoing it and risk of hurting yourself. Because remember, the goal is to get stronger, not hurt yourself. The next thing that may help is really consider smooth movements. You want your movements when doing this to be nice and smooth. You're not jerking the weights or throwing the weights. You want the weights to be smooth and moving smoothly. So smooth movement. Next, don't lock your joints. This is a horrible thing to do when you're extending your joints, whether it's your legs or your arms. You want to make sure you don't lock them into a straight position. That puts a tremendous amount of stress on the joints, and you really need to avoid that. Another thing is to breathe. Often we see people working out and they're holding their breath, and that can lead to passing out or other more dangerous consequences. But the reality of it is really don't forget to breathe. You got to make sure you're breathing, because it is dangerous to hold your breath when you're lifting weights, because it can really do some things to you internally. So it's important that you're breathing as you're lifting these weights. And then the final thing is really just don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're new to this, it's going to be a little bit scary at the beginning. I know that often people come to the gym and they actually sit in the parking lot a couple times before they actually come in, because it can be a scary environment to come into. The best thing is to do is ask for help. Find a good gym with a good trainer that's going to help you get started on the right track. They're going to be able to help advise you on kind of the activities to do, but also support you in making sure your form is good and that you're using the appropriate amount of weight. So again, don't be afraid to ask. So really in the end, as we get older, remember, you start to inherently lose muscle mass. This loss of muscle mass, or sarcopenia, is really something that can have an effect on your lifespan. As we get older, if we don't do things to prevent muscle mass, it actually shortens our lifespan. But there are things we can do to help combat that, and that's really through exercise and diet. But when we talk about exercise, I'm not talking about cardio exercise here. I'm talking about strength training exercise. And strength training exercise means lifting heavy weights with small number of repetitions. So exercise and diet, rich in protein. I would recommend healthy proteins, not necessarily some proteins that are unhealthy that you can see in some supplements and things like that, but really good amount of protein in your diet. It's also important to remember that regardless of your age, it's really never too late to start working on this. Now, obviously, the earlier you start on this and prevent muscle loss is good, but you can have muscle growth at any age. So really, it's important to not be disappointed if you're whatever age you are and you think, oh, it's too late. It's never too late. Um, but again, ask for help. And you want to make sure you do this safely, because when we talk about heavy weights, it's easy to get yourself injured, and that's really going to set you back. So it's important that you have the appropriate guidance in the appropriate form in doing these types of lifts so you don't hurt yourself. Then obviously, if you have multiple health conditions or pre-existing conditions, I'd recommend that you discuss this with your doctor too, to make sure that there's not anything that you need to be concerned about in doing this type of exercise. So remember, your goal here is to get stronger, improve the quality of life, and really to not injure yourself. So muscle mass has a big effect on our longevity. There's things you can do about it. You can exercise by lifting heavy weights, short reps, and making sure you're consuming the appropriate amount of protein. And this is going to help you live a longer and healthier life. So thank you.